On tomorrow, we're going to look at power. We're going to add power in, okay? So what I want you to do, first off, we're going to go through equations, and we're going to go through given value types of things and variables, okay? All right, so first off, can you remember from yesterday, those of you guys who wrote it down, what that equation was for gravitational potential energy? There you go. Oh, you had to Google it. Yeah. You had to use the Google. Okay. All right. What else? What about kinetic energy? Anybody remember what that was? One half mass velocity squared. Another way you see it, kind of the way I like to write it, is mv squared over 2. The problem with that is sometimes it's like students get a little bit confused between the two. They're the exact same equation. Okay? So make sure that you kind of get that broken out as two separate equations. Yeah?
Why do you have rubber bands everywhere?
Santiago Marifo was shooting them. Okay. He'll pick them up here in 7. Okay. So, all right. What about, anybody know just a basic idea of not looking for an equation? Tell me what potential energy is.
The first one is potential energy of gravity.
Okay, what is just potential energy in general?
Stored energy.
Yeah.
Stored energy. It's energy waiting to be used. Yeah, stored energy. So one way is through gravity to store it. What's another way to store potential energy?
Just by stopping something?
More weight and height.
It's still potential, right?
Oh, it's
Still gravitational potential. What's another type of potential energy that you can store?
Like a bow and arrow.
Okay. Where does it get the energy from the bow and arrow?
Tension
Right.
of the
Tension, yes, but there's a specific type of tension that you were dealing with on that.
pullback.
It's called elastic
Elastic.
tension. Elastic, okay? And basically, that's the same potential energy that you have with a spring, right? So it's energy from a spring or energy from something stretching. Okay, it's stored up. That equation, this is new to you. 1/2 kx squared or kx squared over 2. Okay? All right, I'm going to go through what all these different variables are here in just a minute. Okay? Now, if we add all the energies available to a system, we call that the total mechanical energy. Another way you see it written is this sum sign, just the sum of energies. Okay? I like to just write ME. So we can sometimes see sum of mechanical energy depending upon what you're dealing with, like who the author is. But all that means is this. If we add everything up, potential energy from gravity, potential energy from elastic, kinetic energy, and maybe even if we have thermal energy there from heat, add all of it up, we get the total mechanical. Whatever energy you have at the end, you have to be able to, beginning you have to be able to account for at the end. So we call that the law of conservation of energy, which states that energy can never be destroyed. Good. All right. Okay, good. Hey, Greg,
I have no idea what you want me to do, so I'm
let's
just doing my own thing.
That's cool. I was going to say we might want to break it into segments a little bit so it'll be easier to load this time, but like 5-7 minutes or something like that.
Okay.
Did you have an actual camera?
Yeah.
Why are you there?
Because third period was doing the NHF stuff. And since they missed all of this type of stuff, I want to make sure they can catch up because they'll be on tomorrow. Okay. All right. What's M going to stand for? Mass. What's G going to stand for? Acceleration of gravity. Okay, what's H going to stand for? What's another variable we use for height?
Delta Y.
Delta
Okay? What is V?
Velocity.
Velocity. And when we're talking about energy specifically, a lot of times we just call it speed. Realizing they're not exactly the same thing, because what does velocity have, speed doesn't?
Direction.
Direction. But we a lot of times use those interchangeably with this. Okay, now with springs, it's a little bit different. The letter K with a spring is the spring constant. All that means is this. It's how strong or weak the spring is. It's the stiffness of the spring. If you have a really strong spring, it's got a high spring constant. If you have if you have a weak spring, a low spring constant, okay? Now, if we were talking about force, because we talked strong and weak, right? Talking about force, what do we measure force in?
Newtons.
Newtons. Spring constant is dealing with newtons. But have you ever noticed whenever you stretch a spring, what changes as you stretch it? Does it become more difficult, less difficult, or same difficulty as you stretch it?
More difficult.
More difficult. So with a spring constant, it's measured in newtons per meter. It's force divided by distance, basically. The force required to stretch the spring a certain distance. So that's what that's measured in. What did we use X for before?
It's horizontal distance.
Displacement, right, or distance, okay? It's the same thing here. The X is the stretch or compression of the spring, okay? So if you compress it a certain distance, it gains energy. If you stretch it a certain distance, it gains energy, okay? So stretch or compression of a spring, okay? So that equation becomes 1/2 kx squared or kx squared over 2. All right? These are the main energy equations we're going to deal with. Now, tomorrow,
Does this
On
unit
Friday?
have less geometry?